Alright, welcome to the last lesson of Unit 2. This is about the division of real numbers. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive into it. Term you need to know is a reciprocal. A reciprocal is just a number flipped over. Okay, I like to call it the refliprical because it helps you remember you flip it over. Alright, so a number flipped over, what do I mean by that? Well, if I got a fraction, okay, then the reciprocal of that fraction is the number flipped upside down, so it's 4/3. Okay, now the reciprocals only work for fractions, so you can't take a decimal and have a reciprocal. You'd have to convert it to a fraction first. Alright, let's say the reciprocal of a whole number, the reciprocal of 2. Well, the very first thing that you would have to do to find that reciprocal or refliprical is write 2 as a fraction, so we'd have to put it as 2 over 1. So then the reciprocal would be 1/2. Because you just flip it over. Okay? So those are reciprocals or reflipricals, as you'll hear me call them. Okay? Let's move on. Okay, so the definition of division. Division is just the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay? When the divisor, what you're dividing by, is not equal to 0. So what this is saying here is A divided by B is the same as A times the reciprocal of B, or 1 over B. Okay? So, for example, okay, 3, or let's say 8 divided by 2. That's the same as taking 8 times the reciprocal of 2, or 1/2. Okay, those are equal to each other. Those are the same thing. 8 divided by 2 is the same as multiplying 8 by the reciprocal. Now again, this number right here, this B, can't be 0. Because we can't divide by 0. Alright? So dividing, essentially, is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, or multiplying by the refliprical. So you can take the second number, change it to a multiplication problem, and flip it over. Okay, so if I want to do 8 divided by 2, I could change it to a multiplying problem, and multiply it by the reciprocal of the second number. Okay, so let's do some examples. But before we do examples, we got to review the signs of a quotient. Again, the quotient of two numbers with the same sign is positive. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive, is what this is saying. Okay, so -2 divided by -3 is equal to a positive 2/3, positive 2 over 3. Okay, -4 divided by -2 is the same as 4 over 2, which is equal to 2, and it's positive. Okay, and you know a positive divided by a positive is still a positive. So the quotient of two numbers with opposite signs is negative. So negative A divided by positive B equals negative A over B. So -3 divided by positive 4 equals -3/4. Or I could have a -6 divided by a positive 3, and that would equal a -6 over 3, or a -2. Okay? So our first objective is to divide real numbers. Okay? Real numbers are just any numbers we learned about so far. Yes, there are such things as imaginary numbers or complex numbers. We'll talk about those, probably when you get to about trigonometry or calculus in high school. We might even talk about them a little this year. We'll see. Okay, so remember, I called multiplication fun, and I call multiplication fun because it's the easiest one. Okay, multiplying is much easier than dividing. Multiplying with fractions is much easier than subtracting with fractions. Same thing. So multiplication is fun. Well, then what's division? Well, when we divide by numbers, remember that's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So the first thing we're going to do is flip. We're going to change this problem to a multiplication problem. This first number always stays the same. We're going to change it to multiply, and then we're going to change this guy to the reciprocal. Well, remember this is the same as 4 over 1, so we're going to multiply it by 1/4. So first we flipped. Now we're going to have fun. We're going to multiply these numbers. Okay, so we're going to flip and then have fun. 7 times 1 is 7. 1 times 4 is 4. You could change this to a mixed number if you wanted to, but you don't need to because it's simplified. 7/4 is a perfectly fine answer. So we flipped, and then we had fun. So what's division called then? Well, if we flip and then have fun, then division is some flippin' fun. Flip and then have fun. It's flippin' fun all day. That's all we're going to do all day today is have flippin' fun. Alright? Alright, let's do it. Alright, so here are 3 flippin' fun examples. Let's do it. Okay, first one. Very first thing you need to do anytime you're going to have some flippin' fun is make sure your numbers are fractions. Okay, because we need to multiply the fractions. So, in this first example, negative 1/3 is a fraction, 4 is not, so I got to change it to a fraction, 4 over 1. Now we have the flippin' fun. First number stays the same. We'll change it to multiplying so we can have fun, but it wasn't a multiplication problem, it was a division problem. So we have to not only have, or before we have fun, we have to flip. So we flip the second number, make it the reciprocal, or the refliprical. Then we multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 4 is 12. And a negative times positive is a negative. Negative 1, 12. Last check is to make sure it's simplified. It already is. We cannot break that down anymore. Alright, next example. Again, first thing we have to do is to have fractions. Well, 39, or negative 39 is easy to make a fraction. You put it over 1. Okay? But negative 4 1/3 isn't a fraction, and it has to be a fraction first, which is the top and the bottom number. You should remember how to do this. It's called the wheel, or times plus, where you take the bottom number times the side number, and then you add the top. So 4, oh, and we're going to ignore the negative sign when we do this. Okay? 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. That's our new top number. The bottom number 3 stays the same, and it was a negative, so it's negative. Okay? So, I'm taking negative 39 over 1 divided by negative 13 over 3. Now again, when we divide with fractions, we have to change it to flippin' fun. Okay? We cannot just divide these. You have to change it to flippin' fun first. So, first number stays the same. Change it to multiplying so you can have some fun, and before we have the fun, we have to flip. So it's 3 over 13. And it's negative. Sorry. Okay? Well, we can cross simplify first. 13 goes into 39 3 times. So now on top I've got 3 times 3, that is 9. On the bottom I've got 1 times 1, so I don't need the bottom number. Okay, it's just going to be 1. And then a negative times a negative is a positive. So our answer is 9. Okay? And the last example. This one looks a little messy. What this says is negative 1 divided by 3/4. So the first thing that you're probably going to want to do is write it so it looks like these up here. Alright, so again, it's negative 1 divided by 3/4. Anytime you see a fraction under a fraction bar, okay, again, this is when we got to remember this means divide. So negative 1 divided by 3/4. Well, again, we got to change these to fractions first. So we should know we're going to put negative 1 over 1. And we're going to have some flipping fun. Negative 1 over 1 stays. Change it to multiply. Flip the second number. Make it 4/3. And now we flipped. So now we get to have the fun. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 3 is 3. And a negative times a positive is a negative. So negative 1 divided by 3/4 is negative 4/3. Again, simplified already, so we don't need to do anything else with it. Okay, let's move on to a couple different ones. Okay, objective 2 is to use division to simplify algebraic expressions. So they're telling us to simplify the expression. Okay, now this first one right here, this is the kind of problem that gave our algebra students all sorts of trouble last year. Okay, to tell if you can simplify this or not, okay, the problem is that a bunch of us run into is this little minus sign in the middle. If you've got two terms, okay, and they're separated by a plus or a minus sign, then that kind of changes how you have to simplify things. Okay, so first thing is you could change this to addition if you wanted to. It would probably be a good idea. So let's change that top to addition first, because that's what we're used to doing. So it changes to 9 plus negative 27x all over negative 3. Okay? Now again, we got two terms here, 9 and negative 27x, and they're separated by a plus sign. We can only simplify this if the bottom number goes into everything or every term on the top. Okay? So again, this is where we have to recognize what terms are. 9 and negative 27x are both the terms. So we cannot simplify this unless negative 3 goes into 9 and goes into 27x. It has to go into both. Okay? Well, lucky for us, it does. Okay? So 9 divided by negative 3, that is a negative 3 on top, plus, and then these two can simplify too. Negative 27 divided by negative 3, that is a positive 9x. Okay? So this one breaks down again because negative 3 goes into both of these two terms. It has to go into both to be able to simplify it. Okay? So again, 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. Keep the plus sign. Negative 27x divided by negative 3 was 9x. Now, next examples, we're going to have some more flippin' fun. Okay? So, in this first one, the first term, 3y over 4 stays the same because it's already a fraction. Change it to multiply. We multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2 over 1. Okay? Now, 3y times 2 is 6y on top, over 4 times 1 is 4. Now I've got one term on the top, 6y is a term, and on the bottom I've got one term. That can simplify. 6 and 4 simplify to 3y over 2. Again, we were able to simplify this because there's only one term on top, and the 4 goes into it, okay, or they can simplify. And the last example of this type on this page, negative x over 12 divided by 3, again, change it to flippin' fun. The first one is already a fraction. Change it to multiply. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. Okay? Well, x times 1, that's just x on top. 12 times 3 is 36, and a negative times a positive is a negativo. Okay? And that's already simplified. Alright, let's go on to our last example. Okay, this one says evaluate when a equals negative 2 and b equals negative 3. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, evaluate means to plug in the answer and solve. So we're going to plug in the numbers, and you need to show me this substitution. Okay? So negative 2 times a, which is negative 2, all over a is negative 2 plus b is negative 3. Okay? Now, when we talked about simplifying these, see if we can simplify to start with. Well, we don't have separate terms on the top, okay? Because they're not divided, or they're not separated by an addition sign. So these are not two separate terms. This together multiplies to get one term. Okay, negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And I'm just going to rewrite this in steps just so you can see what I'm talking about again. Okay? Now, some of you might think that we could simplify this, okay, these two right here, but we can't because 4 and 2 simplify, but 4 and 3 don't. Okay? So when these are separated by a plus sign, again, you got two different terms. These would have to simplify, and these would have to simplify. Okay? Because it's not the case, it won't simplify at all. And that should make sense if we actually add these together. Negative 2 plus negative 3, that's negative 5. So we got 4 over negative 5. And that doesn't simplify. Okay, so we're done. So you should see how this ties into this. Okay, this is already in simplest form because we couldn't simplify these because 4 and 2 simplify, but 4 and 3 don't. Okay, so that's as simple as we can make it. Alright, if you got any questions, let me know. Happy homeworking.